You did not plan to think about him today. You were doing fine, better than fine, actually. You had made it through a whole morning without reaching for thoughts of him, without scanning for signs, without running the familiar mental calculation of where he might be and whether he had thought of you yet. You had momentum. You had something that felt like progress. And then, without any particular reason, without a trigger you can name or memory that surfaced with any warning, there he was again. Not a thought you chose, more like a tide coming in. More like something that was always there underneath the surface of the fine morning, waiting for the first quiet moment to rise. And the maddening thing is not that it happened. The maddening thing is that you know with absolute certainty that the same thing is happening to him. Not because he told you. Not because of a message or a sign or a synchronicity that confirmed it. You know because you have been in this long enough to understand that what moves in you moves in him, and what moves in him moves in you, and the distance between you has never once succeeded in changing that. You can be in different cities. You can have weeks of silence between you. You can have both decided, separately or together, that this is over or needs to be over or should have been over by now. And still the current moves. Still the pull arrives in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday. Still you keep finding each other, not always in the physical sense, not always in the visible sense, but in the place underneath all of that, the place that neither of you has ever been able to fully leave. You have probably wondered more than once whether something is wrong with you, whether this is obsession dressed up as connection, whether the intensity of the pull is a sign of wounding rather than truth, whether what you feel as recognition is actually something more ordinary, something you could redirect if you were more healed or more rational or more willing to let it go. Those are fair questions. They are questions worth taking seriously. And this video is going to take them seriously and give you the most honest answer available, which is not the one that flatters the journey or makes the pull sound more magical than it is, but the one that actually explains the mechanism underneath it. If you keep coming back to this person no matter how far you run, if the pull is real and unexplainable and you are done pretending otherwise, leave a like and subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. Drop the words, "I feel the pull," in the comments. Because what is happening between you is not a mystery. It is a very specific neurological, energetic, and psychological phenomenon, and understanding it is going to change how you relate to it completely. But before we go any further, I want to promote my twin flame personal reading. As you know, this channel was demonetized a few months back, and this helps me keep going and posting regularly. A twin flame union personal reading is built from your birth coordinates alone. Your name, your date of birth, your time of birth, your place of birth, your country. What you receive is a reading constructed from the actual blueprint of your connection, using astrology and twin flame energy to show you where you are in this journey right now, what the universe is building between you beneath the surface of the silence, and what your soul contract with this person actually contains. You receive a personal audio reading delivered straight to your inbox and a detailed written report you will return to again and again as the journey unfolds. The pull you feel deserves a real explanation. That explanation lives in your chart. The link is in the description below. There is a particular experience that people in twin flame separations describe so consistently that it stops being anecdotal. It goes like this. You make a decision to move on. A real decision. Not the kind you make in a moment of frustration and abandon the next morning, but a grounded, considered adult decision that this is not working and you need to close the chapter and build something different. And for a while, the decision holds. You feel the relief of having chosen. The world becomes a little more manageable. Other people become more interesting. The future opens up in ways it could not when you were holding so much space for one person. And you think, finally this is happening, and then something shifts. Not always dramatically. Sometimes it is as quiet as a dream you wake from and cannot shake. Sometimes it is a song that arrives at exactly the wrong moment. Sometimes it is a conversation with someone completely unrelated that, somehow, circles back to something he once said, and suddenly he is there again in the middle of something that had nothing to do with him. The decision you made does not disappear, but it becomes harder to inhabit. The distance you created begins to feel less like freedom and more like a wall you are pressing against, and the pressure is coming from both sides. And then, more often than feels coincidental, something happens in the external world. He reaches out, or you reach out, or you run into each other in a way that probability alone cannot account for, or a mutual contact says his name at exactly the moment you were finally starting to forget it. The details vary. The structure does not. You keep finding each other. The distance does not hold. And what you have probably never been given is a real explanation for why. The explanation exists. It is specific, and it is grounded. And it begins with what happens inside the brain when two people form a connection at the depth that twin flame dynamics operate. Neuroscience has spent decades mapping what happens inside the human nervous system during experiences of intense relational connection. What researchers have found across multiple fields of study is that the brain does not treat a deeply significant relationship the way it treats ordinary experiences. It treats it the way it treats survival information. It encodes it differently. It stores it differently. It gives it a different kind of priority in the ongoing operation of the neural system. Not because the brain has made a philosophical judgment about the relationship's importance, but because intensity is the signal the brain uses to determine what matters. High intensity equals high significance equals deep encoding. This is not a metaphor, it is the literal mechanism. When you encounter another person at the level of depth and intensity that characterizes the twin flame connection, the brain releases a cascade of neurochemicals that are associated with bonding, threat, pleasure, and survival simultaneously. Oxytocin, which creates attachment and the felt sense of coming home. Cortisol, the stress hormone that activates when that attachment is threatened. Dopamine, which fires in anticipation of reward and which is particularly potent when the reward is intermittent rather than consistent. And adrenaline, which the body produces during experiences of overwhelming emotional intensity and which deepens the encoding of whatever is being experienced in those moments. The result is a neural imprint, not a memory in the ordinary sense. Not the kind of memory you access deliberately when you want to think about something. A deeper kind of encoding that sits closer to the level of instinct. The kind of imprint that activates not when you choose it, but when the neural system detects something in the environment that resonates with it. A tone of voice, a scent, a quality of light at a particular time of day, a feeling in the air that resembles the feeling of being with him, and suddenly the system lights up in recognition before the conscious mind has even registered why. This is the neural basis of the pull. And here is what makes it specific to the twin flame dynamic rather than simply to any intense relationship. The depth and frequency of the resonance between twin flames, the experience of recognition that goes beyond anything the ordinary relational framework can account for, creates an imprint of unusual density and specificity. The neural encoding is not just of him as a person, it is of the felt sense of the connection itself, the state of being in resonance with him. The particular quality of aliveness that arrives when the field between you is active. That state is encoded in your nervous system as something the brain has categorized at a very deep level, as belonging to your baseline experience of being fully yourself. Which means when it is absent, the system registers the absence, not as loss in the ordinary emotional sense, though that is also present, but as a gap in the felt sense of wholeness, a quality of incompleteness that the system keeps orienting toward, the way the eye keeps being drawn to a space on the wall where a painting used to hang. It does not forget, it keeps noticing. And when something in the environment resonates with the imprint, the system moves toward it, not because you decided to, because the neural architecture is doing exactly what it was built to do. There is another layer to this that operates in parallel with the neural imprinting, and it is the one that explains why the pole operates across distance in a way that ordinary neuroscience alone cannot fully account for. Mirror neurons. In the 1990s, researchers at the University of Parma made a discovery that quietly reframed how we understand human empathy and connection. They found cells in the brain, first in primates and then confirmed in humans, that fire both when an individual performs an action and when they observe someone else performing that same action. The same neurons, firing in the same pattern. As if at the level of neural activation, the boundary between self and other had become temporarily permeable. This was the first physical evidence for something that people who work with empathy and relational attunement had long described experientially. That we do not simply observe other people. We internally simulate them. We run a version of them inside our own nervous system, using the same neural machinery that generates our own experience. In a twin flame connection, this mirroring operates at a depth that most people never encounter in ordinary relationships. Because the resonance between twin flame pairs is so specific, so finely tuned, the internal simulation is not a rough approximation. It is close. Close enough that what he feels in his body creates a corresponding activation in yours, and what moves in your interior field moves through to his, not as a mystical event separate from physical reality, but as an expression of a neurological reality that science is only beginning to have the instruments to measure. This is why you know, not because you are imagining it, not because you have constructed a story that explains the pole in terms that are emotionally satisfying. You know because your nervous system is receiving real signal. The distance between you does not interrupt the signal the way it interrupts ordinary sensory experience. The neural entanglement that was established during the peak moments of connection does not dissolve when the physical proximity ends. It operates on a different substrate than geography. And this is the mechanism underneath the experience you have had again and again of reaching for your phone at the exact moment he was reaching for his, of thinking of him with unusual intensity in the hours before he reached out, of feeling something shift in your chest with no external provocation, only to discover later that something had shifted in his life at exactly that time. This is not magic. It is the nervous system doing something that the ordinary frameworks of distance and separation and moving on were not designed to account for. He does not have language for this. That is the first thing to understand about the divine masculine in the middle of the experience you have been living inside from your own side. He is feeling exactly what you are feeling in its structural form. The return. The pull that does not obey the decision he made. The thought of you arriving in the middle of something that had nothing to do with you, landing with the specific weight and texture that no other thought in his daily life carries. He is not processing it the way you are processing it, where you have allowed yourself to sit with the experience, to feel it, to track its movement through you, to give it language and meaning and context. He is doing something different. He is filing it. He is taking the experience of the pole and placing it in a category that his mind has built for managing things that are true but inconvenient. Not denying it exactly, not lying to himself in the simple sense of that word. More like building a structure around it that allows him to function without having to act on it. The structure looks different for different men, but it usually involves some version of this. He tells himself that what he feels is memory, not current reality. That the pole is the echo of something that was real at one time and is now simply taking longer to quiet than he expected. That the intensity of what he feels when he thinks of you is evidence of how significant the connection was, past tense, and not of what the connection is in the present. He reframes the pole as nostalgia, as grief, as anything that places it comfortably in the past and removes its claim on his present. This reframing has a cost, because the neural imprint does not care about the reframing. It does not update its firing pattern based on the story the conscious mind has constructed to contain it. Every time he thinks of you, every time the pole returns, every time he reaches a certain quality of stillness and finds you there in it, the imprint deepens. The neural pathway that was built during the height of the connection is not weakening through disuse. It is being reinforced through the repeated activation of the memory itself. He is, every time he thinks of you and tells himself it is just nostalgia, accidentally watering the very thing he is trying to let grow less. This is cognitive dissonance in its most specific relational form, holding two things that cannot coexist: the decision to be done and the neural reality of a connection that the brain has encoded at the level of primary importance. And the way the nervous system resolves cognitive dissonance is not through the triumph of one side over the other. It is through increasing tension until the tension becomes too large to maintain. That tension is building in him right now. And on the 27th of April 2026, Venus in Gemini forming a sextile to Neptune in Aries is doing something specific to that tension. Gemini energy moves. It makes connections. It bridges things that seem separate. And Neptune in Aries dissolves the armoring of the will, the particular masculine tendency to override what is felt with what has been decided. The combination of these two frequencies is not dramatic. It does not announce itself. But in the quiet hours, in the 3 a.m. space where the structures of the day cannot hold the weight of what is actually present, the armor is thinner than it has been in weeks. He is closer to feeling it fully than he has allowed himself to be in a long time. Here's what the pattern is not. It is not unfinished business in the ordinary sense. Not something that can be completed by having a final conversation, or reaching a clean conclusion, or getting the closure that the narrative part of your mind keeps constructing scenarios around. The pull does not resolve through language. It does not resolve through the ordinary mechanisms of relational completion because it was not created through the ordinary mechanisms of relational formation. What you have with him was formed at a level deeper than the ordinary relational layer. Not deeper in a poetic sense, deeper in a structural sense. The kind of depth that occurs when two nervous systems recognize each other at the level of primary resonance, and the brain responds to that recognition by encoding the connection not just in memory but in the ongoing architecture of how the self experiences itself as whole. This is what the repeated return is about. Not that you cannot let go. Not that you are less healed than someone who does not feel the pull. Not that you are making a choice to stay attached to something that has ended. The pull is not a choice, and the return is not a failure. They are the natural behavior of a nervous system that has been organized around a particular resonance and that keeps orienting toward it the way water keeps orienting toward the lowest available ground. Not because the water decided to, because that is the direction the physics point. Understanding this changes how you relate to the pull, not by eliminating it. Not by giving you a technique that makes the Tuesday morning return into something that no longer happens, but by removing the layer of judgment that has been sitting on top of the experience. The belief that your inability to stop the pull is evidence of your wounding rather than of the reality of the connection. The story that someone more healed would not feel this. That the pull is proof that you are doing something wrong. You are not doing something wrong. You are experiencing the honest behavior of a nervous system that knows something your conscious mind has been trying to argue with for the entire length of this separation. And what it knows is this: the connection is real, the resonance is not manufactured, and the pull toward each other, the return that keeps happening no matter the distance, is the most honest data point you have been given. Right here, I want to put something practical in your hands. Because if you have been tracking this journey in your head, carrying all of this in the interior space of your own processing without a system to document what you are moving through, you are doing the hardest work of this journey without the tool that makes the work visible to you over time. The Twin Flame Journey Tracker and Progress Workbook is 39 pages built specifically for this. An 8-stage journey tracker so you can see exactly where you are in the progression and track your actual movement month by month. A synchronicity log so the moments of unexpected connection. The thought of him arriving the moment before he reached out. The 1111. The signs you would otherwise lose in the noise of daily life get captured and held instead of dissolving. A daily self-love checklist that keeps you as the center of the work rather than always orienting outward toward him. Weekly reflections and monthly reviews that let you see your transformation in black and white rather than only sensing it vaguely. When you are in the middle of a journey that moves at this depth and this pace, you need a record. Not because the record creates the journey, because without it, you lose the evidence of how far you have already come. The link is below. There is a version of this journey that the divine feminine sometimes falls into when she understands the pull for the first time. She uses it as a reason to stay passive. She takes the information that the connection is neurologically real, that the pull is not invented, that the return keeps happening because something genuine is encoded between them, and she converts it into a reason to wait, to stop making decisions about her own life, to place herself in a holding pattern of readiness, staying available, staying oriented, staying close to the edge of contact, just in case the moment arrives when the field moves and she needs to be ready. This is the one use of this understanding that does not serve her, because the mechanism that keeps the pull alive and real and operative across the distance is not maintained by her waiting. It is maintained by her becoming. The neural imprint he carries of her is not a static image. It is a living encoding of the quality of resonance she represents, and that encoding updates, not slowly, with a degree of sensitivity that is almost uncomfortable to sit with when you understand it fully. When she expands, he feels it, not metaphorically, through the same mirror neuron system and neural entanglement that makes the pull itself possible. When she moves forward in her own becoming, when she takes up more of her own life with more of herself, when the version of her that exists in his neural encoding becomes richer and more fully realized, the pull on his side does not diminish. It intensifies, because what his nervous system is encoded to recognize is not her passivity or her waiting or her availability. It is the specific quality of her at full aliveness. And every time she moves toward more of that, she becomes more of what the encoding is oriented toward. This is why the most strategic thing she can do, if strategy is the frame she needs right now, is the same as the most genuinely loving thing she can do for herself, which is to stop managing the connection from a distance and start actually living her life. Not as a technique for making him return, because her life is the thing, because the becoming is the point, and because the pull between them does not require her management. It is already operating. It was always already operating. It will continue to operate based on physics that she did not create and does not control. What she controls is herself. And the version of herself she is in the process of becoming is the most honest answer to the question of why they keep finding each other no matter how far they run. She is becoming someone the connection cannot ignore, not because she decided to, because the path of genuine self-recovery from the depths of what this journey costs is the path of becoming more fully oneself. And more fully herself is exactly the frequency the connection is encoded to recognize. When the pull arrives on an ordinary Tuesday, and it will, here is what to do with it. First, stop resisting it. Not because resistance is always wrong, but because the pull you feel is not asking you to act. It is not asking you to reach out or to send the message or to do any of the external things that the mind immediately generates as possibilities when the pull arrives. The pull is not an instruction, it is information. And resisting it instead of simply receiving it is what keeps you in the loop of tension rather than moving through it. Receive it the way you receive a sensation rather than a command. Notice where it lives in your body. Not its meaning, its location, the specific geography of the feeling when you orient toward him without doing anything about it. You will find that the pull, when you stop either acting on it or suppressing it, has a texture, a quality. Often there is something underneath the ache of it that is not painful at all. A warmth, a recognition, the felt sense of something real pressing against the inside of your chest from the direction of the connection. That is the imprint recognizing itself. And when you can sit with that recognition without immediately converting it into strategy or grief or a reason to act, something changes. The pull completes, not permanently, not in a way that means it never returns. But in the moment, the wave moves through rather than crashing and rebuilding. The Tuesday morning passes and you are still intact. And there is a small, quiet piece of information left behind from the encounter, which is simply this: the connection is real. You already knew that. But your body needed to confirm it again, the way a tuning fork needs to ring to know that it is still in tune. Let it ring, and then let the morning continue. Because you were not designed to live inside the pole. You were designed to live your life while the pole exists alongside it, doing the work it is doing in both of you, moving the field in the direction it has been moving since before either of you had language. For any of this, the reunion that is coming does not need you to be at the window watching for it. It needs you to be so fully alive inside your own becoming that when the field finally closes the distance between you, you are meeting it as someone who has spent the intervening time becoming more themselves, not less. That is the only preparation this connection has ever asked of you. And the part of you that keeps feeling the pull, the part that knows, even on the days when the knowing is inconvenient and exhausting and the last thing you wanted to feel on an ordinary Tuesday morning, that part of you has been paying the most accurate attention all along. It knows what it recognizes, and what it recognizes is coming. Before I end this one, let me remind you that if you feel like getting a personal twin flame reading, you can order one now. The link in the description.